could reshape the Middle East for years to come because it shows the United States president embracing a once U.S. designated terrorist who is now the leader of Syria. Ahmed al-Sharaa spent years fighting U.S. forces in Iraq. There was a long-standing $10 million bounty on his head, and the U.S. just dropped it actually a few months ago. He was once known as Abu Muhammad al-Dalani and was placed on the U.S. global terrorist list back in 2013 for leading an al-Qaeda affiliate in Syria. He allegedly orchestrated suicide bombings across Syria. And as a reminder, I want you to listen just one more time to what President Trump had to say following that historic meeting when I asked him about it on Air Force One today. How did you find the Syrian president?
Great. Great. I think very good. Young, attractive guy, young guy. Strong pass. Very strong pass fighter. He's got a real shot at pulling it together.
A strong pass indeed. My source tonight is retired four-star General Stanley McChrystal, who has a new book out on character choices that define a life. It's available now, and it's so great to have you here, sir. On what the president was just saying there in this meeting, which is, I mean, nothing short of historic between the two of them. You commanded forces in the Middle East. I wonder what your reaction is just to if I told you, 15 years ago that this would be happening, what you would have said.
Well, I probably would have said unlikely, but the reality is people who are enemies often evolve into not being our enemies, and people who were terrorists evolve into something else. Menachem Begin was a terrorist in his early days. Nelson Mandela was labeled a terrorist. And so many people who feel very strongly about something actually exhibit a force of will, and then they can mature and evolve into being more. I'm not sure if that's the case here, but I think we need to be open-eyed and open-minded about it and give it a shot.
Yeah, we've seen some hope for what this could mean for Syria. I mean, that's certainly the president's view of this, as he kind of sees it as an economic lifeline. He really wants Syria to sign on to the Abraham Accords and normalize relations with Israel. He did seem to note that that's further down the road if it happens. I wonder if you see that happening anytime soon.
Yeah, I actually think it's possible. I think the Mideast is in a period in which the tectonic plates are mobile now. They're not all moving like we'd like them to, but there's an opportunity for progress. Now, there are certain very recalcitrant issues that still stay, and some opposition, Iran and whatnot. But the reality is we've got regimes and leaders who are interested in a different future, and that could give a lot of options. Now, the United States role, I think, is critical here. We can't just be following. We can't just be doing what other countries want. We've got to have a plan, and we've got to play an activist role in it, in my view.
Yeah, obviously the geopolitics seem to be scrambled in a real way. We're in Doha right now, and the Qataris, as you know, they've got a big military base here. They've been key mediators when it comes to hostages being released by Hamas and trying to end the war there. A lot of the scrutiny, though, in this particular visit is focused on the administration's plans to accept that luxury jet from Qatar. I just wonder if that is something that you personally, given your experience, would you recommend that? How do you see that?
I think it's problematic. As an American, I don't feel very good about it, simply because I think it projects a view of American character, what we're willing to do in a way that I'm not comfortable with. Now, I'll leave it to legal people to argue about whether the emoluments cause or other things, whether they can make it work. But I would rather him not do it. And I think that in the long run, it's not either a good optic or a good reality for the relationship.
Yeah, they have made clear they don't plan to back off of it. We'll see what happens there. But one thing that was discussed with the Emir today was Iran, and that has been kind of an undertone of a lot of this trip and what's going to happen with their nuclear program. The president made very clear what the options are he views here today. I want you to listen to what he said at the state dinner tonight.
You're also working with us very closely with respect to negotiating a deal with Iran, which is the far friendlier course that you would see two courses, there's only two courses. There aren't 3 or 4 or 5. There's two. There's a friendly and a non-friendly. And the non-friendly is a violent course, and I don't want that. I'll say it up front, I don't want that. But they have to get moving.
Do you think that Iran will, in the president's words, get moving?
I don't agree that it's a binary choice. If we go back to our relationship, really back to 1953 with Iran and President Mossadegh, when he was overthrown and the United States had some hand in that, we've had a problematic relationship for all those years, ups and downs. We've always hoped that the more centrist part of Iranian populace would gain power and would move in a good direction. I think that's still a possibility. They are a democracy. We may disagree with the theocracy that they've got, but the reality is, I think if you make it binary, if someone came to the United States and they gave us a binary yes or no, I don't think we'd respond very well to it. Now, I don't think that Iran has been helpful. I think they've been an enemy for the last few decades, but the reality is just having do this or we're going to do a violent course, I'm not sure how that plays out.
On this front, I mentioned when I was introducing you about your new book, it's called On Character. It comes 15 years after President Obama accepted your resignation in the summer of 2010. I always love reading people's stories about their life experiences and what they learned from that. I think it can be such a guiding point for people going forward. I just wonder, when you look at that in your story, what you want people to learn from that and what you've experienced.
Yeah, I explored how I think about things and how I think that's affected my character, shaped it, and what I want my character to be. And I don't have a prescriptive set of answers for people. What I think I've done is identify a lot of questions that are pertinent to all of us. But the most important thing about it is the centrality of character. If we think about character, it's the essence of who we are, and it's reflected in what we do, in our behavior. And in many cases in our lives, as I described, if you get off an airplane, you see people line up at the carousel to get their bags, nobody else can see or get through. People are being thoughtlessly selfish. And how often are we that? But then you explode that up to the national level and you say, what is our national character? Because our character is our faith. And so what I think when we decide who we're going to give money to by buying their products, who we're going to give social media likes to, who we're going to vote for, that character really ought to be the governing criteria, not something we go, well, I like that person's policies on this or their politics, but I'm willing to live with the character that I don't like. I think that's a recipe for real disappointment and potential disaster later.
Our character is our fate. Very well put. General Stanley McChrystal, great to have you, and thank you. The new book on character, Choices That Define a Life, is available now, and I hope everybody reads it and takes something away from it.